It's Saturday evening. It's time to talk about the very best comic books in the entire world with our good friend Drew.
I am ready for this. It was an interesting and fun week in new comics. So let's talk about these interesting and fun new comics.
Well, certainly something that came out in the new comic book this week, but also some other news that we received, that it looks like DC Comics are getting a little hot. They had 7 of the top 10 ranking slots in the March sales rankings, mostly powered by the Absolute Universe. What do you think? Have DC Comics finally turned the corner, being pulled ahead by Absolute Universe?
I don't know if I would say they've turned the corner. They're getting to that corner. Now, the question is being able to maintain these numbers with other books. We are seeing with Absolute Batman, yeah, it is helping. They are relative. There's been some dip, but they are still maintaining those numbers. Thankfully, due to variant covers, which does help a lot. I mean, they're still reprinting issue number 1 like crazy, but hopefully with strong word of mouth, which even to this day and age when we have the internet and everything else, word of mouth is still one of the strongest things to do to get a comic book to sell well. And it sounds like word of mouth is helping with a lot of these books. Hopefully it does help with Flash, with Martian Manhunter, Absolute Superman. I really don't care about, but I should. But hopefully they do keep the numbers up as we progress through the year.
I think there's some really good titles out there in Absolute Batman. I think Flash looks like it has a lot of potential, but I do think Absolute Superman's kind of a loser. I already don't like that one. I don't like Green Lantern basically at all, although the last issue of Wonder Woman was absolutely fantastic, and I thought the best issue in the Absolute line. So it is a little bit uneven, but it's certain, just looking at everything out there, that the Absolute Universe is making a huge difference.
Yeah, it is, and it's giving people a fun, I guess a good jumping on point if they're not familiar with these characters. Maybe a lot of these people have seen them on various media forms, like through the Zack Snyder films. And you see new number 1 with the Martian Manhunter, who showed up in the Zack Snyder movie. Like, hey, maybe it's gonna be a good jumping on point for this character. Maybe I'll figure out what's going on. When we know this is something very, very different than what we're used to with Martian Manhunter. But what's interesting about the Absolute line is that each book is pretty different in its own way, which is interesting. Which is an interesting take for these books. And at some point, we know they're going to try to converge them all together and to make a Justice League in the future. It sounds like, but I'm very curious to see how that turns out and what that's going to look like, because what we're seeing, I don't know. It really looks like these characters don't belong in the same universe.
What'll be interesting is, are they going to be able to convert some of these Absolute Universe readers, maybe dipping their toe the first time, or maybe thinking these are exciting things? Can they convert them over to the ongoings that they currently have within the Prime Universe? Because they have much better ongoings than Marvel as well. Green Lantern is a very good book right now. Aquaman is an exciting book. Superman is good. Batman and Robin is good. The New Gods is good. Even the new Resurrection Man. Those are all fun books. If they're able to translate maybe some sales that way too, they can really start to assert some type of dominance. But they have a long way to go to actually be dominant. Marvel has dominated for like 40 years.
Yeah, they have. We know briefly that brief window in time with DC Rebirth, that was that one moment when DC actually passed Marvel in the last several years. So maybe, hopefully, we can see that again this year. But like I said, it's going to come down to strong word of mouth, good storytelling, and hopefully people like us are able to get the word out to people. Hey, if you like this, check these out. Check out Aquaman. Check out Green Lantern. You'll really enjoy these books. They're fantastic. And I really hope that they can keep the strong work up. And hopefully, clearly, guys like Jeremy Adams, they're really leading the charge with DC and their success.
Before we get into a lot of these amazing DC books, because we have 4 to recommend, let's hit the indie scene first. Vatican City number 1, Mark Miller writing, Per Berg on art. Really cool vampire book. The entire world of what's left of humanity are in the Vatican City trying to hold out this enormous vampire threat. This is a very, very fast-paced book. I personally like the art from Per Berg. It's a really good mixing of American comic book stylings with manga. It seems like it's not for everybody's taste, but I thought it was a lot of fun, very exciting, very gory, and another hit for Mark Miller.
This really pains me to say this, but I really did not enjoy this issue that much. And hey, look, I truly appreciate Narwhal's art. I truly do. I don't want that to be misconstrued. Art such as his style can be very alienating to some readers. You either love it or you hate it. But another factor, much like I have with a certain G.I. Joe issue this week, it can be messy and it's hard to follow a lot of the times, specifically with who the hell are some of these characters? Where are some of these actions taking place? What are these characters feeling, emoting? What are they doing? The action also isn't that dynamic a lot of points in this book. As for Mark with Hickman, with Hickman in his Aliens versus Avengers comic, he kind of, to me, he glossed over the most interesting part, which was the downfall of the United States in the world. We only get that in 2 pages, and we're left with, I mean, in my opinion, the least interesting character Mark has ever written. And honestly, due to the art, I couldn't find that guy again in this book. I mean, to me, I'm going to say this is the weakest entry of the Millerverse in a very, very long time. I really wanted to like this book. Hopefully issue 2 is better.
I can tell you, someone that's read issue 2, that it is better, but I like this one as well. Definitely going to get a recommend from me. Also, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, Jinx #1. Danny writing and illustrating with Dan Rodgers, apparently helping out with the writing as well. I didn't really love the Beachhead silent issue. I think this is a far better example of what a silent issue should be. There's 20 seconds on the clock before this bomb explodes. Jinx has to hightail it out there, and there are Cobra operatives. I thought the art, while not your traditional comic book superhero art, was really, really cool, had a really dynamic flair to it. This is a very good example of what a silent issue can be, and do it successfully.
Yeah, I'm going to attribute that to Dan Waters, who co-wrote this thing. I believe that he was the one who came up with that ticking clock at the top of the pages. That had to have been him. Because, I mean, look, Danny is a decent artist, but it's the way I see it, it's a wannabe Frank Miller style without that flair. And it's missing the storytelling chops of Larry Hama, who did it brilliantly in that legendary G.I. Joe #21. And I think it's a fine silent issue. I've seen better. We've definitely read better. I've seen much worse. See the Beachhead issue, a week or so ago, but this one is fine, and you could do a heck of a lot worse. So give G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, Jinx a try. It's going to be an interesting read.
No, it was a lot of fun. I thought that was a major step up. We'll see what happens with the next one. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 more issues of these things coming out, but I thought that was a really good effort. We're also going to recommend Geiger #13, Jeff Johns writing, Gary Frank on art, Ash Arden. We finally see her discussing what's going on with Molotov and the fact that she's basically holding him prisoner, and she's trying to use, or plans to use, Geiger for something very, very bad. At about the exact same time, the remnants or whatever's left of the U.S. Army arrive to take them down. We get some pretty good action scenes, but my favorite scene of all was when Geiger finally opens up and lets his feelings out, but the only person he would do it to is Junkyard Joe, who can't talk back to him.
Bullseye. I'm glad you said that. That moment between Geiger and Junkyard Joe was perfect. We've been waiting for that for a long time. We got it. It was beautifully told by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this issue. And we get the backstory of our Lady Geiger, Molotov here, and the relationship between her and the Dr. Frankenstein, if you will. Great action sequence with the remnants of the U.S. Army. Gary Frank, fantastic storytelling chops here by him in this issue. Strong recommend for Geiger #13.
Final indie recommendation, and this is coming more from Drew than me. Transformers 19, Danny Warren Johnson writing, Ludo Lullaby as the artist. I've been loving Transformers. I think this is probably the weakest issue that we've gotten so far. It's all about Megatron, which is something I would definitely love to learn about, but it was very, very repetitive. It didn't really seem to go anywhere. And by the end, I was just very, very underwhelmed with what had been displayed and even filled in as far as the backstory of Megatron and why he's been away all this time.
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to slightly disagree with you here. Yeah, I love what we saw with Megatron here, and I love what his captors are putting him through over and over and over and over several hundred times he goes through at this point, maybe over 1,000 times he has to go through. Dan Warren Johnson did a fantastic job telling the story here, but I will say the weaker part of this is the art by Ludo Lullaby. I think he does a decent job conveying what's going on here, but the action sequences as well are illustrated, but outside of that, but it gets muddy and confusing at times. I found myself having to go back and forth several times on some of the pages to figure out what was going on, much like with the Jinx book from G.I. Joe. It's not the best. To me, it's far from the worst, but it's still a recommend from Transformers. All I got to say is not to spoil what happens, but if there is an Autobot matrix of leadership, shouldn't there be one on the other end with the Decepticons?
I think it probably could have been pulled off a little bit better, but Transformers has been fantastic for almost 2 years now. Normally, at this point, we would recommend some Marvel comic books, but there's not a single Marvel comic book worth recommending this week.
No.
Such as
no Spider-Man? What? Crazy.
Definitely not. But if you like Batman, the other big premier character in American comic books, you've had a great week. We're going to recommend Absolute Batman number 7, Scott Snyder writing, Marcos Martin on art. Scott needs to go out and curate and find better fill-in artists for Nick Dragotta. The first one was awful. This one's better, but this doesn't belong in an Absolute Batman. This belongs in a Ice Cream Man or something like that, an indie horror comic book anthology book. Not to say that that kind of art isn't great. It is. It just doesn't fit this highly stylized, over-the-top, hyper-violent book. That being said, the story introducing this new version of Mr. Freeze is very, very interesting. I thought the very best part of this comic book is this new iteration of Matches Malone, who I thought had a lot of really cool elements about him. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be seeing him much in the future, but there are a lot of strong elements. Scott Snyder is able to overcome the art that doesn't belong on the book, and I'll definitely still recommend it.
It's dumb fun, and it gets head-slappingly funny at points, namely the arc M, if you will, that happens in this book, and as well as with how Bruce Wayne is drawn in this. And I didn't realize Bruce was an overweight Asian American with a wrist cast gun in this. It was interesting choice. But yeah, I agree with you. The cool and creepy stuff was when the new version of Mr. Freeze. I love how it's done here. It's a great new take, and I'm totally on board for that craziness. It sounds like a lot of fun, and I love that type of lore that Scott Snyder is building with that. Like, ooh, continue. You have my curiosity. But like I said before, if you enjoy movies like Cobra or Tango and Cash, you'll love Absolute Batman. This is dumb fun. Recommend for Absolute Batman.
Definitely. But Scott Snyder, find some better fill-in artists that actually can keep up with Nick Dragotta, because that ain't it. Also going to recommend Batman and Robin number 20, Philip Kennedy Johnson writing, Miguel Mendoza on art, Juni Ba also on art. This is my personal pick of the week. I think this is the best comic book this week. Really interesting stuff as we've got Batman essentially tripping balls because of the Gravedigger's Poppy. Barbara's like, what are you talking about? Every 2 seconds you appear to be in some type of new place that you're describing. But he does make it to Damien's room. He knows that Memento has Damien, and he needs some clues to find out where he actually is. And he finds Damien's own version of Batman and Robin that he's been writing and illustrating, because Damien is a comic book writer, artist. And that part is done by Juni Ba, and Bruce finally sees the way that Damien sees Batman and their relationship and their family history, and maybe the options that he would like to go into moving forward. And I thought it was very illuminating. Quite liked it a lot. I thought it was very moving stuff.
Yeah, and what's great about this arc is that it's really about fathers and sons. And specifically parts in this book, the opening pages with Thomas Wayne's journal, as he's talking about little Bruce and what he sees in him, as well as Alfred and his insights into Bruce. It's very powerful stuff, as when we're reading the thoughts and emotions of a father and the development of the son. And the second are the journals of Damian Wayne. And I'm trying not to spoil too much here, but I love the potential turn we could be getting with Damian Wayne here. I mean, this story by PKJ is showing some real growth of the character and a potential future outside of the tights for him. I really hope we do see more of that progression. But what makes it all the more powerful is Bruce's reactions to it. And to be perfectly honest, this should have been the entire issue, these journals, because outside of the journals, we've been seeing him trip balls since the last issue. I think it's fine, but I love the stuff in the journals. It's powerful stuff. Yeah, this is a recommend.
Well, and that art by Miguel Mendoza was pretty damn good. So at least they made it look good if it was repetitive. Yes. The final Batman book, at least, that we're going to recommend, Batman Dark Patterns number 5, Dan Waters writing, Hayden Sherman on art. Hayden Sherman belongs on this book, not Absolute Wonder Woman. This is a better home for him. I thought this was kind of a step up. What a weird take that you have this apartment building that might be haunted, but now it's been taken over by Scarface from the ventriloquist. And even after he takes the ventriloquist down, all of a sudden people are wearing ventriloquist masks. People are getting stabbed. The house is talking to him. He's talking to some lady that's been there forever. Talks about how, no, I see my father every Thanksgiving, and he tells me that my turkey's dry because his ghost is still here, because the place really is haunted. This is one of the weirdest Batman stories of all time, and the art does uplift what they're trying to sell here, and I just think it's really cool.
And it's not predictable. I mean, because a lot of these books, you can kind of follow to see what's going to happen at the end, but a book like this, I don't know what the hell is going to happen next. And yeah, this is one of my top 2 comics of the week. And like you said, Hayden Sherman, if you had told me that he did the art for Absolute Wonder Woman, I said, you're smoking crack. There's no way. That guy here, there's no way. That art sucks in Absolute Wonder Woman. But yeah, here he is. I don't want to say God tier, but it is beautiful, beautiful art in this book. But yeah, this story, it's bold, it's insane, and it's a creative new take with the ventriloquist, and it's flipping awesome and mind-bendingly fun. It's one of those as a writer where you wish you had thought of it. Batman is outgunned, he's lost, and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Just when he thinks he has it figured out, the story in the building makes a left turn, and then another, and then another. The cops are just as useless because of the armed, insane gunmen in the tower, and they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on with the building as well. The art by Hayden Sherman, perfect for this story, does a perfect job of conveying the actions, the setting, the emotions of the comic. We've been waiting for a great Batman series this year, and these last 2 issues of Dark Patterns have been some of the best. Best, Wes, and strongest recommends for Dark Patterns, the number 5.
Yeah, it was just a fantastic week if you're a Batman fan. So therefore, it was a great week if you're a DC fan. But we're not done. We got one more to talk about. Aquaman number 3, Jeremy Adams writing, John Timms on art. This is the most aggressive, violent version of Aquaman I think I've ever seen, and I'm definitely digging it. We get the introduction of the Trident sword, which has some pretty neat capabilities to it in here. Seeing Arthur Curry basically being strapped down, being held prisoner essentially on this ship. But when he asked his captive, what happened to Mira? What happened to Atlantis? She said, if I actually told you what happened to them, it would feel like I was stabbing you directly in the heart with an iron dagger. That's how bad whatever potentially has happened there, and him realizing it's time to break free. And this is just a really cool Aquaman. Actually has kind of an edge. He's almost like an absolute Aquaman. He's that much different than we're used to seeing him, but his wife and children and his entire civilization is gone, and he's losing it.
Now that you say that, Wes, I really, really think this could have played well as an absolute Aquaman series. Oh, that issue number 1 opens with that. We're all wondering, like, what is going on here? I think this could have been an absolute Aquaman story, and I think this could have been another book that could have leapt at the top of the charts if it had the absolute banner on top of it. But yeah, this is my pick of the week. The action, the art, the storytelling, the dialogue, all top notch here. We see the first meeting of Aquaman and Mera. We get some fun mermaid action, Aquaman in chains, and it leads to some awesome action sequences in this. And on top of that, Aquaman gets a dangerous new weapon in his arsenal. I agree. We haven't seen Aquaman quite this dangerous and crazy in a very long time. Like for me, the last time he was like this, my opinion was the Peter David, Jim Calafiore run back in the early 1990s. But that was a long, long time ago. This is a kick-ass, fast-paced, action-packed story by Jeremy Adams along with Aquaman, with colorful characters, a creative new world, and clear motivations, awesome villains. Art by John Timms, perfect. This is a superhero comic book artist through and through, future superstar on the rise. Does a fantastic job telling a story. Strongest recommends for Aquaman.
And if you want to know just what an enormous dork Jeremy Adams is, go to his social media, specifically his Twitter, and he has a video where he created the Trident sword from stuff from Home Depot so he could demonstrate for John Timms how it should work when he illustrated it. But that's what an enormous dork this guy is. He loves Aquaman, and that video was absolutely hilarious.
Coming this summer, Unholy Nightmare number 2, written by myself, art by Aurelio Mazzara, edited by the great one and only Aaron Sparrow. And what you're seeing here is the Aurelio Mazzara exclusive cover to Unholy Nightmare number 2. It's a Love and Rockets number 1 homage cover. This cover is going to be offered on the Kickstarter, the original art, for a specific price. Can't say yet, but you can own this cover art when the campaign goes live. Do please check out Unholy Nightmare number 2, guys. You're going to love it. Aaron Sparrow loves it. We all love it.
And I hope you're loving everything here on Think Critical YouTube. But if you need more than this, we've got lots more going on Think Critical Patreon. That is the best place to support the channel. Link in the video description, button right here. And we've got more exclusive podcasts going on there than you can possibly handle. Hope to see you there very, very soon.